emotional, very, very often. Yeah, thank you for that. Destroying me at the back of the room before I come on. It's always, it really is always an immense pleasure and a privilege to give all you people an insight to what it is that we do, or a huge part of what we do at Zinzino, and certainly within the product team. And before I go through the countdown tells me 19 and a half minutes, I want to make it really clear that everything I go through here, and in fact some of the information, the data on the slides, it's not me. There is a whole team of people back at 2 places primarily, but actually all over the world, which I will explain, that go into all the work that we do. And what I want to discuss with you is how that positions us to be confidently what we consider to be world champions in test-based nutrition. And it was great to stand at the back and listen to Art. I don't know if this was the script, the plan, but that session before mine couldn't have been any more perfect, because it really did set the real world context. And hopefully it's given all of you the type of confidence, understanding and know-how how to communicate this. What I'm going to do is kind of take us a little bit deeper. I want you to consider what research is, what information is, what data is in the 21st century, and how that empowers us to be legitimately confident when we tell people we're the best. Because everyone tells everyone they're the best. No one in the history of anything ever created a product and said, here we go, this is the 17th best thing in the world, would you like to buy it? True. So, in the context of what we do, then what does it mean to say that you're the best? And can you back that up? Can you prove it? I always say that proof belongs to the police and it belongs to lawyers and judges, and research is all about evidence. Research is where you gather a sufficient amount of evidence to be able to say, this is the case. This is true to the best of our current understanding. And one of the things I love best about science is that we repeatedly update our understanding in the light of new information. And that's why it is upon us as an organisation to share what we do with the wider world, because the wider world needs to understand this more. And when they do, when people have a better grasp of the concept of why omega-3 is so important, well, that makes all the handshakes you need to make far warmer, because people are already convinced of the problem, and you walk in and you've got the single best solution. So, let me give you that confidence. What does it mean? So, I love research, I get lost in it, it's my passion. I'm a generalist, we have specialists in the team, but I'm one of those people who moves across different areas. And the functions of research is to add to the existing knowledge base. So what do we know? That's the first thing. What would we like to know? What do we know that we don't know? That can be tricky. People are often as influenced and shaped by the things they don't know as the things they do know. What are the obstacles? What are the challenges? And I always remember back at university, we were discussing the research process and why you would get 20, 50, 100 people in an experiment, and then you would apply lots of statistical modeling, mathematics to the situation to determine, well, what does that mean in the world? And I asked my professor at the time, because I was young and naive, why do we do that? Why don't we just measure people? And I always remember him saying, well, we can't measure the world. And then, all those years later, Zinzino come about and go, let's just measure the world. Let's just measure everyone. It's great, isn't it? And you can't argue with that, can you? We tested 10 people, 1.3 million. Might give you a better insight. So, key though, what will this change? In research and in research meetings, we often go, so what? Okay, we're going to do this, but so what? What will it change? What's the benefit? What will actually happen when we know this? And then the key one, and I know there are a lot of people, I've heard the rumours, who think that I have an influence on the director schedule, particularly with tomorrow night's theme night. Had nothing to do with me. And I had no influence on this either. But this couldn't be any more perfect, because the final question here, and the key question is, what will be the impact? Research and peer-reviewed scientific journals are measured by impact. We have an impact value. And the bigger the value is, then the more influence your research has. So certain journals have a huge impact score, and others not so large. And as researchers, you're always trying to put your work in the highest impact place so that it reaches the most people. It's the most credible type of research. And so for us, we live across two worlds, because we are legitimately trying to take from the research to develop products that will make a measurable, meaningful change in the world. But at the same time, we're putting everything in place behind the scenes so that we can take all of that knowledge, that understanding, that insight, and we can publish it in the peer review, so that it undergoes the rigors of science and stands up as credible. And I promise you now, Dr. M.R. Lee Jislovic is somewhere in the room. Don't kill me for saying this. But I promise you now, within the next 2 years, there will be at least 2 high-impact peer-reviewed publications out there with looks at all of our data, and we'll be showing the world how it's done. And so you've probably been to school or attended a course or been to university, and you've heard that saying, there's no such thing as a silly question. Everyone heard that? Yeah. It's not true. I'm here to tell you I've heard so many silly questions. But I encourage it, because it's actually questions that lead to advanced understanding. Get those questions out the system. Be confident to ask whatever it is you need to know. And it's by getting the response that you develop your learning, and by developing your learning you progress to be able to ask better questions. The best science and the best researchers in the world aren't the ones with the best answers, they're the ones who can find the best questions. How can we do this? How can this change that? And so you want to be surrounded by inquisitive minds. You want to be surrounded by people who really delve deep and challenge the accepted norms so that we can think and do things differently. And that's how science moves forward. So for us to be leaders, world leaders in test-based nutrition, then we need to understand the world. If you're going to lead the world, then you need to know the world. You need to understand it. I'm not really talking about coordinates. I'm sure you all know this. This is your home. You've lived here your entire life. I'm sure you know how to position yourself. And don't stare blankly at your GPS going, where am I? But in real terms, to know the world is to look at how we humans, how we live, how we exist, how we survive and thrive off this planet. And that's where data really does come into its own. But before I lead into sharing some of those insights, it's important to note something that is critical here. The art is knowing how to know. There was once upon a time a way in which people measured the planet based on what tools and materials and methods and understanding of math they had available to them. And surprisingly, in some instances, did an incredible job. But in others, not so much. Remember, there were civilizations that thought the world was flat. There are certain people who think that today. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I remember once seeing an output from the Flat World Society who said we have some of the biggest experts on the globe. Read into that whenever you will. So our knowledge and our understanding in accordance with how to accurately measure things is critical. And this takes us back to VITAS. VITAS are our independent laboratories in Norway who are not just really good at developing dried blood spots samplings. They're world leaders, verified world leaders. And in fact, the academic brains behind VITAS have published extensively hundreds of peer-reviewed research articles in the highest impact papers. So when people challenge you, and I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to mention it again, when that expert you meet, the lazy spurt, who says, "Where's the science? Show me the evidence." Bear in mind that all of this is backed by pioneers in this space who are at the cutting edge, the front line, who are changing, who are dynamic in shaping how we understand the world. So don't lose your confidence. Challenge back. Remember, you can't prove a negative. So put the task upon them. Say, prove to me it doesn't. Where's your research? And you'll quickly find how fraudulent they are. Facts are only as reliable as the tools used to establish them, and in the pursuit of truth, good questions are way more important than good answers. And so, look at that quickly because I'm going to move on. They're the two papers that will be coming out imminently. 1, 2, 3, boom. One of those is so close to 100% written, we could finish it off if we were all together in a week. And the other one will probably take 2 weeks. It's a huge database. The amount of work that Dr. Emily Gislovec and now Dr. Martina Torreson, who you will all meet at some point further down the road, as well as the Scientific Advisory Board, the amount of effort and hard work that has gone into systemizing that data and then being able to appraise it and weigh it up is phenomenal. It takes hours and hours and hours of blood, sweat, and intelligence. But we do it. So what I'm going to do now, and actually all of this next data comes from Dr. Emily's interpretation, her analysis. She's shown data very similar to this to some of you before, and we're going to take a look at it now. We have to be careful with what we share, because one of the rules of the scientific community, when you publish a research article, is that it has to be original, it has to be authentic, and it has to add to existing knowledge. So we have to be careful with what information we share, because if we share with you something we intend to publish, it becomes unpublishable. But this gives you a good insight of what that 1.3 million tests have told us so far. So you have an understanding. We can equate things easily. We can talk about, as Art did, how many people are health-centric, how many people are already taking an omega-3 supplement, and how many people are not interested in health. I've been in this space a long time, and I admire your intentions, but those fights with people who don't care, I wouldn't take them on. Focus all your time and energy on the people who want to make a change. And focus more of your time and energy on people who are taking a rubbish product when you can replace it with an outstanding one that actually does the job. Now, I'm going to swiftly move through these slides to show you how the world looks when we take this glance at it. And what you've got to bear in mind is that up until now, people guessed at this. They did those small studies. They wondered and they came up with equations. This is literally how it is. This is the best type of research. We're lifting the lid and we're looking at reality. So, there is the glorious world and all of its attributes who take no omega. Okay, and there's multiple reasons why, causality, but as you can see there, as its colour indicated, you get a sense of how the world looks when it comes to the lack of omega. We do have a world out of balance, you know that. We talk about this a lot. We talk about how many people on a first test as a percentage are way out, way beyond that less than 3-to-1 ratio, or that, above 8 on the omega level. So we know this. Perhaps this is nothing new. There we can zoom in a little bit on a place that's closer to home for some of us. So what can we see by looking at this? We can see huge areas of red everywhere. Yeah, we can cast a glance at that. We can get a real clear insight of what's going on, the how and the why. But it gets a bit lost in translation there. So let's delve into it and look at it more like this. So we've got those who do not use an omega-3, those who use another type of omega-3, and those who use balance oil. And you can see a consistent profile all across those regions, whereby the only ones that are within, at or beneath the recommended levels, tolerances, are those who use balance oil. That's the reality of how the world looks. I've done talks before where I've discussed the challenges around this, how difficult it is to access it through your diet, economically, ecologically, philosophically. But the reality is, this is what you're faced with. So when you go up to a person and you say about their omega-3 status, where do you think you're at? Be confident that the vast majority of people won't be in a good place. And that enables you to have a profound, almost immediate impact on their quality of life. Here we go by BMI categories. And without getting lost in all this data, what I'm going to tell you now, we've got a huge obesity issue in the world. 2 weeks ago, the Office of Global Burden published that we now have 1 billion obese people on the planet. Not overweight, obese. What that means now, for the first time in history, there are more people who have a dietary-related problem that is excessive rather than deficient. More people are obese than starving. Think about that. That's where food affluence has taken us. And when we look at this, even when we look across those BMI categories, your general systemic marker of health is you're in a better place if you're in balance. And we can change that. And remember, progress is always the root. It's not perfection, it's about improvement. And this could be the first fundamental change a person needs to have a cascade of other health benefits in the wake of it. And then we look at this by age. I don't have so much time to go through all of the factors that influence why it changes with age. There are dietary changes and influences. There are social changes and influences. There are changes based on your physicality, your physical activity, how much time you might be dealing with a disease, which is more likely as you age. But there we see the profile across, and the difference between those who do and those who don't use balance oil. And if you ever needed convincing that ours works where others doesn't, this should be the slide you pay attention to. So, here's how the world could look. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. By the way, I didn't influence the colour of the t-shirt either. It had nothing to do with Ireland. But I did go in my room and go, wow, this is perfect. But this is how the world could look. And this should give us all hope. And how do we bring that about? By you having the confidence to make a change in your family, in your community, within your society, to grow your business ethically and considerately, and change health one cell at a time. Woo! And there's our little zoom in on the place that's closer for most of us, but not all. So I'm going to abruptly bring this to a close now. I've got just over a minute left, and I'm promised I'm going to really work hard to not go too far over time. So, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. What a lovely quote. That takes me back to the professor who said, well, we can't measure the world. And then people like Orion and Hilda and Dag go, hey, let's measure the world. Let's just do that. You need that kind of gusto. You need that kind of cavalier, don't care, let's just go and do it. There has to be a way. And on the right there is actually, you see this a lot in Liverpool. You'll see this on t-shirts, and you can see this on cups and stuff. Rebels get results. That resonates deeply with me. I love the idea that you break the mold. You're an outlaw, you're a rebel, you do things differently. And just like Star Wars, the rebels are the good guys, and we're doing it for all the best reasons. 1 million plus tests. How do I know that we're leaders? Well, I'm going to show you. You have a different perspective when you're at the front. Some people follow health, and they follow wisely, and they follow something good that other people are doing. And that's the kind of view they may have. But when you're at the front, your view is entirely different and looks a lot more like this. How do I know we're in the front? Because there's no one ahead of us. Every time I have a conversation with someone else from a supplement company, from a food company, from a health company, I say, oh great, how big's your database? Sorry? Sorry, how big's your database? We just know. Oh, magical. I love a bit of magic. So, we are completely different. It's 1 million plus, and the numbers are increasing in rate. So not only is the beyond the million, but the rate that we're getting beyond the million is speeding up because you amazing people are getting more and more people involved. That's a great problem to have, and keep it coming. And I want to follow by giving you some assurance. Zinzino, when it comes to science, is not about me. I'm just the one who's gifted the opportunity to speak to you quite often. These incredible people all across the top, let me introduce. We have Ola Ada, we have Professor Angela Marie Rizzo, we have Professor Paul Clayton, we have Professor Thomas Gunderson, we have Dr. Abraham Antrahaj. On the right, these are our Scientific Advisory Board, our newest members, Dr. Natalie Kader and Stephen Chiniski, who will become known to you all over the next year or so. Next down, we are research partners with the University of Bath. We have Professor Dylan Thompson, Professor Javier Gonzalez, and that devilishly handsome chap next to them is the Dean of the Royal College of Surgeons of Harvard and UCD, Dr. Mick Malloy, who is also the leader of the Global Disaster Medicine. But then we save the best until last. We have our own Emily. Come on. And actually here with us on this trip, which is really important to me, and she's not on this slide, and that's a crime on my behalf, is our very own Marina Karlberg, who's in the room. So please raise the roof for Marina, because she is at the back of every single global group. And so, when you pick a fight with us, your science against ours, you better bring the big dogs, because we're ready for you. And I will finish here. The courage to dare and the courage to fail. And I have to give full credit to Orion and to Hilda and to Dag and the whole team around us. We are pushed and we are encouraged. We are prompted to explore, to try and to fail, to learn and try again. And with that kind of culture and attitude in an organisation, we know we can get it right because we'll try every single way that gets it wrong. And we'll only give to you the fully working version.